Summer.
Vertical one up.
The plan is set.
1,600 yards, closing fast.
The arsenal has been assembled.
Get ready to rock and roll! Incoming!
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Failed Fantasy Blockbuster series. I'm your host, Diego Crespo. With me today is my co-host, Matt Caringo.
That's me.
If I sound a little under the weather, it's because I kind of am, but that's okay, because nothing was going to stop me from talking about the early 2000s classic banger, Reign of Fire, a movie that could have only come out in the late 90s or early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I actually want to talk a little about our history with this movie before we get into anything else.
Yeah. You want to go first?
Yeah.
Since you apparently have something.
Yeah. Just like it's post 2001. Lord of the Rings just come out, so I'm full on in the fantasy world. Harry Potter's also just come out. Dragons and shit are so cool, right? Magic.
Can I just say that here it just shows where our two minds go when we talk about movies. What you just said. Because you went, it's post 2001. Lord of the Rings. Whereas, like, I'm already ready to be like, so this is about 9/11. Like, I'm already ready to do the 9/11.
This is about British 9/11.
Yeah. No, I got a whole take. We'll get there. But I just think it's funny that you're like, you specifically invoke the year 2001 and your go-to is Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings.
I was saving that bullet, but thank you for bringing it up now. So magic and fantasy shit's so cool. Video games are also big, and lo and behold, at a trip to one of my little local Hollywood videos, I see in the little video game shelf a game called Reign of Fire.
Oh, boy.
And I'm like, oh, what's that? I want to see that. Oh, it's based on a movie? What? Dragons attacking England? Hell yeah! What is this about? I rent the game. I'm terrible at it, but I make my way through it, and I'm like, this is the coolest shit ever. Obviously, that game is probably dog shit, but you know, I'm not that old.
There isn't
2002.
There isn't even a list of published reviews for the game on the Wikipedia page for it.
Yeah,
and there are currently 9 reviews on Metacritic.
Wow.
Let me see what the actual score is. It's got a 54.
Yeah, that's probably high.
The majority of people being mixed. TotalGames.net gave it 80 out of 100, calling it frantic and enjoyable. IGN gave it 60. The linear missions, oftentimes frustrating controls, and general dreariness of the gameplay make it all feel more like a chore than entertainment.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So I'll go pick it up for like $2.
Yeah, check it out. Maybe it's better than the Thing video game.
All right, here's something though. Is it of that era where they were able to get the cast to actually do voices in the game?
I don't remember. I want to say yes, but I honestly could not tell you.
I mean, I'm looking at this. Hold on one second. You can play as the humans and the dragons?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's actually kind of cool. I bet it doesn't work, but that's an interesting take.
Yeah, right.
So, what type of game was it? Was it it says action adventure, but
yeah, it was a lot of vehicular stuff because especially with the humans,
well, that's what
you have to put out the fires and stuff, and
that's what I was assuming.
Shoot down the dragons.
Is that it would be a vehicle based thing because if you're gonna play as the dragons, you would have to that would just be a vehicle, right?
Yeah. So that's probably how they mapped those different gameplay styles. You know. The kind of it makes it feel different just by the visuals.
I was gonna say
the vehicles and dragons.
I was gonna say it could be like Rogue Squadron, but with dragons. But then the company that made Rogue Squadron literally did that, and it destroyed their company.
Oh really?
Do you remember Lair?
No. What the fuck?
Does anyone remember Lair? Lair was it's made by Factor 5, which is the studio that made the Rogue Squadron games. And it's a game where you pilot dragons, right?
Oh, yes.
It was one of those games where, remember that there's the famous first year of the PS3 where there was basically nothing on it, right? And it turned into it was like wait until Uncharted comes out and wait until Lair comes out. Lair was the other one where people were like, wait until Lair comes out, it's going to be huge. And I don't think, like, a lot of stuff went wrong with it, but a big thing that went wrong with it was that they did remember the first wave of PlayStation 3 controllers had that 6-axis thing where
I remember.
If you turned the controller, you could turn the thing, and a lot of Lair was built around that mechanic, and it just didn't work. And it was like, you know, and it's that thing of like the transition to HD gaming, they couldn't really handle it, so it's like it's a very buggy kind of game. I just remember that was one where, like I was like, even though I didn't even have a PS3 then, I was hyped for it because I liked Factor 5, and then it got like savaged on release. And it led to, again, like another year of the PS3 not really having games, you know? I think Factor 5 is technically still around, but they don't really make anything.
That's too bad.
But like,
because Lair sounds like the best game ever. Just like Raid of Fire sounds like the best movie ever.
Yeah, it's one of those
post-apocalyptic movie with dragons.
Yeah, well, it is one of those things where, like, if Lair, like, if they had just been like a little simpler with it, but like they probably to meet what Sony wanted, because we need a game that shows off this 6-axis bullshit. Like, they had to retool the game around that. But yeah, so you played the game, couldn't play it, and then you rented the movie.
Yeah, and then I rented the movie. I missed it in theaters. And at that age, that is probably one of the best movies I've ever seen in my entire life.
You had that reaction even then?
I think I kind of lied to myself a little bit. But there's literally no other movie with this premise. So on some level, I think that helped me pick up the ball and run with it, you know?
Okay. I mean, that, you know, I can see people reacting that way to it. I don't believe I saw this in theaters. I'm checking I did a whole letterbox diary of every movie I saw in theaters, and it's not on it from the year 2000. I did see Minority Report and the Crocodile Hunter movie. I think this was an early Netflix DVD by mail for me.
Okay.
I'm willing to bet that's how we watched it. And I remember it kind of freaking me out. Like, I remember it like kind of scared me. Because it's post 9/11, and like it's that like first year of post 9/11. I always joke like we thought terrorists were hiding in our own thoughts. Like we thought like another attack was going to happen any day now. And I had a lot of anxiety as a kid about like apocalyptic scenarios, you know. And I'm like, how old am I? I gotta be like 8, and I'm watching this and being like, oh, now I gotta worry about fucking dragons possibly coming back too. I'm like, I didn't think about it. I'm like, yeah, if dragons were real, they'd fucking burn everything. And I remember it like kind of freaking me out. And I think I only watched it then, and then it kind of just became like a cable watch, like when it was on cable. And it is weird, this is probably my introduction to both Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey. Like...
Yep.
Yeah. And this is like one of the most insane McConaughey performances ever.
This is pre-McConaissance.
Yeah.
McConaughey just going unhinged. I mean, it's strange now to look back on it. At the time, I don't know what people must have thought, because he was not this guy.
Yeah. Well, I think this is that era. I think part of why the McConaissance happened was because he was a really liked and respected actor, but people didn't know what the fuck to do with him for a long time, right?
Yeah, he was the rom-com guy for a while.
He was a rom-com guy, but then they also kept trying to put him in other movies that weren't rom-coms. So, like, he's in, like, Frailty right before this, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Where he's, like, kind of the narrator of that movie. Like, the other big one after this is Sahara, which is another huge bomb, where he played Dirk Pitt, which is part of those Clive Cussler novels. You know, like, looking at his credits, like, we do, like, We Are Marshall, which is a disaster of a movie. It's like he was like,
Fool's Gold.
well, yeah, but like also like by the time you get to 2008, he's like liked enough that you can put him in Tropic Thunder and it's funny, but he's also not like a big enough actor that you're like, okay, this guy's amazing. And then it looks like, yeah, it's like 2011, he does Lincoln Lawyer, Bernie, and Killer Joe, like all in a row. And then after that, he does Mud, Magic Mike, and The Paperboy, which aren't like great movies, but Paperboy isn't great, I mean, but...
Yeah, I was like, hold the fuck up. Mud
Yeah.
and Magic Mike are terrific.
yeah, I meant to just single out
Yeah.
Paperboy.
Yeah,
but,
you fucking... I've got you on Soderbergh hate watch, so...
yeah. And then True Detective, like, right at, like, and then, yeah, after that he's, like, Academy Award for Dallas Buyers Club, Interstellar, and True Detective. And then
Hey, he also has that iconic scene from the trailer of Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I mean...
Because he's literally, like, in that scene and that's it.
Yeah, that's a big one, too, but that was kind of like that movie made money because people thought he was going to be in more of it. But, but, like, it's so weird how he didn't really capitalize off of the McConaissance very well. You know what I'm saying? Like...
Yeah.
You look at afterwards.
He's got this Gus Van Sant two-hander with Ken Watanabe, Sea of Trees. Have you ever seen that?
No, I have not actually.
It's not very good, but him and Ken Watanabe are like terrific in it.
Yeah, I mean he's good is the thing, right? Like he's not.
Yeah.
He's like in Kubo and the Two Strings, right? Which was like it was a whole thing when that happened, but.
Yeah.
He's in The Beach Bum. Right, like
yeah, I love The Beach Bum so much.
It's so strange that he was never really able to. Oh, don't worry, he's in Deadpool and Wolverine. I forgot.
What?
He has a cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Oh, okay. Did you just spoil that for people who care?
Oh no, I'm sorry to people listening to this in the future. I'm sorry if I spoiled that he is Cowboy Deadpool in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah. Anyone who cares about that movie saw it last weekend, so
yeah.
It's fine.
He's apparently in a video game coming out.
Like he made it?
I'm looking. It's strange. He's in a game called Exodus, but if you click on it, it takes you to. Oh, it's some division. Hey, it's kind of tied to what we've been talking about. It's something called Archetype Entertainment, which is the video game division of Wizards of the Coast, which owns Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. So I'm guessing it's their attempt to kind of break into it, but it already sounds like they're fucking up if their move is like, get Matthew McConaughey in it. Like, but looks like there's some BioWare people that are there. Could be something. I don't know. It's worth keeping an eye out for, but I'm going to be skeptical of that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Can't blame you.
Also, I don't know if you remember this. I remember like TV spots for this movie a lot. And the shot that was in the movie is his death shot, like him jumping through the air with the axe, right? Like, and
yeah, spoilers. McConaughey dies in this movie.
Whatever, people. Who gives a fuck? Like,
no. Do you think people should watch this movie?
Yeah, but also doesn't matter if you know he dies. Like,
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's the movie's from 2002. Everyone, calm down.
Yeah.
But that was the TV spot is him jumping through the air with the axe, and that's his death. Like it was in like every ad. But
I do kind of love when movies do that now. Like maybe not to the same extent. Like if I'm actually interested in the movie, but every once in a while they're like, oh, here's that sick ass shot. Like, do you remember that movie where Idris Elba fights a lion?
Oh yeah. I can't remember what it was called.
The fucking. Yeah, I can't either. But like the moment he like charges the lion in the movie, the lion immediately fucking beats his ass. Like there's no fight. He just gets washed immediately. It's great. It's
amazing.
So stuff like that. But yeah, so pro McConaughey in this.
Yeah, I think I'm pro McConaughey as an actor. Now he's gotten weird in recent years, like where he's like,
yeah, he should just stick to acting.
Yeah, where he's like kind of like I might try to become governor of Texas, like, and it's like I'm a Republican, but not like a weird Republican. But I'm like, dude, you can't not be a weird Republican anymore. Like, it's. What are you and Woody Harrelson talking about when no one's around? Like,
yeah.
Like,
Oh God.
it is a like I see all sides. Like it's a little concerning. Although like to be honest, Texas is so fucked up though. He would probably be better than the current leadership in Texas. But I don't know.
Yeah, but that's like the lowest possible bar.
Yeah. He would be
Like in human history, that's the lowest bar.
he's like, I'm not gonna kill trans kids, but I'm also not gonna do anything to help them. Like that would be the type of Republican he would be. Like
Yeah.
so, or at least maybe hopefully as opposed to a fucking monster. But yeah, he's like he's just in that weird realm where he's constantly flirting with politics right now, and we'll see where that goes. But yeah, I like McConaughey. It's a kind of wild performance. He's kind of the Quint of the movie, you know, where he's just insane. And but I think this is a weird movie because there's no reason for this movie to have the budget it has and be released in wide release, right? This is this is a Sci-Fi Channel original movie that somehow got a theatrical budget, right? Like
Yeah.
that's what it is, and I don't mean that as a negative. I'm just that's the kind of vibe the movie has. So, but it leads to a lot of weird pieces where it's like it's kind of schlock, but also it has Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah. I talked about this in the podcast years ago when Gene and I tried doing like a kaiju monster movie style show on here. And this movie I am positive on. Even at the time like I first watched it though, I'm like, this is a little dour for like the premise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that they do commit to it.
Yeah.
But it is like, you know, fun isn't it's kind of only in the pitch for the movie. It's not really in the movie, which is okay, but it is something I've always kind of brushed up against personally.
Yeah.
It's not even wrong. It's a personal thing.
Yeah, it's just strange. We're like, because it does actually have fun moments, but it is surrounded by like dourness, you know, of like there's like children threatened constantly, and like, I mean, there's the scene early on. Not to jump ahead too much, but when those guys fuck up and decide like we're gonna go pick the fucking food early from a family, and it's like his pressure is like kind of legit, where it's like, yeah, like everyone's starving and like dying, right? Like it's not like he's not doing it because he's a selfish person. He's a desperate person. And as the family like is slowly killed and they realize they made a mistake, it's played pretty straight, you know? It's like if a movie was trying to have more fun, there would have been a guy who's like I just want the food, right? Like he's not even thinking like he's not doing it for any altruistic reasons. He's just doing it for like I'm sick of eating this bad whatever the fuck. I'm gonna go get something that actually tastes good, and that would have fucked everything up. And then it would have been fun to watch him and those idiots die, but instead it's watching a family slowly get killed. Like, and that's kind of the weird vibe of this movie.
Before we started recording, last night actually, you asked me to keep a tally of the amount of dragons we brought up in this episode. We haven't brought up any yet.
Well, I mean,
Not one.
I meant like the whole series. Like we've done, like how many movies now have we done with dragons in them? This is our
all of them.
Well, no, we've done. This is our fourth recording, and I believe 3 of them have dragons in it.
I mean, because dragons are just fucking cool.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, that's it.
It's just interesting to me.
Yeah. No, I mean, like if you like dragon action, which is a very specific audience, I think you will enjoy this movie, and I think you should watch it. I definitely have a soft spot for it, even though like it is just very like it's strange. It's so strange. Not in its execution, just it existing and how it exists.
Yeah.
I know the production history was a little like fraught because it was written in like 1996, I think initially, from writers Greg Chabot and Kevin Paterka.
That's got to be that's got to be a post Jurassic Park thing, right? Like we can do CGI. Let's do dragons.
But they're also their initial version. I don't know to what extent this was, but their initial version was deemed too expensive, which is funny considering the budget they had for this one anyways. And I'm assuming that version would have been more modern day, not post-apocalyptic, because the pitch for that, it's now out there. Like, I guess they kind of commissioned like art for it for the anniversary of the movie's release. It was going to be like firefighters versus dragons. So there's like concept art of a firefighter holding the firefighting shield with an axe as the dragon's breathing fire on them. It looks sick.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's fucking great.
That sounds a lot closer to like Q the Winged Serpent than this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Because actually, that is why we're like, there's that opening where Christian Bale does the narration, which sounds like that might have been the plot of the original movie.
Yeah.
Where it's like they didn't believe what it was at first, and it took forever for people to realize that dragons were really back and all that shit. So maybe that was what the original vibe would have been. Like there would have been these fires, and people couldn't explain it. People were like, I saw a dragon, and everyone being like, that's insane, right? Like, because that is the plot of Q the Winged Serpent, which is kind of funny when you think about that. Like a giant flying serpent could fly around New York City, and people just be like. I mean, but you know, I think we joked about that being the fucking Godzilla '98 thing too.
Yeah,
it's like
it doesn't work in that movie.
It's like a modern jungle. It's an environment where you can easily hide. New York City. What a dumb movie.
Where every building has 8,000 windows.
Yeah, where buildings are exclusively windows in New York City. Are stacked fucking wall to wall with cubicle office workers. Or like rich people committing atrocities. Like it's New York City. And it's like, yeah, that's a good place for Godzilla to hide. But yeah, that does sound fun, you know, I'm surprised we haven't done a Dragons Are Back movie in a while. Like, at least I can't think of one.
And you know what? Especially with, like, Game of Thrones and stuff like that. Where, like, people, like, just like dragons, and there's not a lot to capitalize on that fact besides Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is for dragons, what Jurassic Park is for dinosaurs now, you know?
Yeah. But that was also the problem with Game of Thrones, though, was that, like, the whole joke among people watching it would be like, when are the dragons actually going to fucking do something? Right? Mm-hmm. And, spoilers, if you've read the books, there's 5 books out, and they haven't done a lot. By the end of the 5th book, I think they've killed like a handful of people. Like they're still small, and 2 of them are in a dungeon, right? Like I think that's how the 5th book of Game of Thrones ends. But now there's a whole show where it's nothing but dragons. People are really happy about it, I'm sure.
No, okay, so I brought that up to you in the texting previous to this episode, where, like, I've only seen the pilot for House of the Dragon. I thought it was really great. I haven't felt the need to go back to it, but people seem to be really enjoying it, and that's awesome. I'm going to check it out eventually. Currently making my way through Tokyo Vice, which is excellent. But, like, people seem to be angry about the dragons. Like, there's dragon discourse. Like, I guess one of the dragons, Vagar, I think is, like, the older one. And people, like, I saw someone tweet, like an image of Vagar, which is like the largest dragon like ever or whatever the fuck, and they're like, that is just straight up not a dragon. And I'm like, what does that mean? So I click it through, and they're like, it just looks like an old lizard. And I kind of saw it, and I was like kind of impressed by the simplicity of the design, where it's like, yeah, this dragon's so fucking old, it has like old leathery scaly skin.
Yeah,
because that's what happens when things get old. You know, you're not as well put together. You're not gonna become more regal as you get older. Like, you can carry yourself with regality, but like, it's an old animal.
Yeah,
like, I think I've never seen that before. To me, that's kind of interesting.
Yeah,
you know?
It's also kind of a metaphor.
And people are just like, no.
It's kind of a metaphor also for, like, you know, the aging House of the Dragon, right? The aging power structures, right?
No metaphors, only lore.
Yeah. That being said, though, George R. R. Martin is one of those guys where he's like, my dragons are scientifically accurate.
That's my favorite fucking thing in the world. Because, like, dragons are not real. But there was a conversation I had last weekend at Comic-Con where we were talking about, like, some people don't want to watch Game of Thrones House of Dragon because, you know, like, violent assaulting against women. Like, there's lines, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the shows cross it, and they've been rightfully criticized for it. And then someone with complete sincerity was like, "That's just what happened back then." And then we had to, and then we like called out like, "No, like dragons aren't real."
Yeah.
And they were like, "No, I just mean they meant historically,
Yeah.
you know, like in medieval times and stuff like that." But I just thought that was funny. People talk about it like that,
Yeah.
and you kind of have to catch yourself a little bit, which is very funny. That dragons are just part of cultural lexicon now.
Yeah. But his whole thing, it's actually it's relevant to Ring of Fire because these dragons have a similar design where they're four-legged creatures, right? So it's like they have two back legs,
Yeah.
and then the wings are their arms, right? And George R. R. Martin
Yeah.
was very specific about his dragons looking that way, as opposed to a lot of dragon designs which we've seen in other movies where it's the four legs and then two wings, right? Which would be a six-limbed creature, right?
Mhm.
And George R. R.
Yeah.
Martin is like, there are no mammals that have, there's no like reptiles or mammals that have more than four limbs. So he's like, that's why, my dragons have four limbs, because that's scientifically accurate.
Okay, George.
Hey,
Whatever you say, buddy.
you should, you really you haven't read the books? Like, you know what we're talking about?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, you haven't read Dunk and Egg. That was what we were talking about.
No, I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've only read the mainline Game of Thrones books,
Yeah.
which are excellent. And I want to say, because I was one of the people initially, since we're just talking about dragon shit,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
one of the people initially who was like, yeah, books 4 and 5 are good, but they're kind of like all over the place. I'm like thinking back on them, and I'm like, there's a lot of good fucking shit in those books
No,
that's
there's-
just not in the show.
Yeah.
I should reread them.
They're good. The problem is, the thing that happened with 4 and 5 is that was supposed to be one book, right? And it got too unwieldy, and George decided to split it up geographically. So, like, Feast for Crows is usually the one that people talk shit about, right? Because a lot of, like, Tyrion isn't in it, Daenerys isn't in it, Jon Snow is barely in it, right? Like, it's a lot of the favorites aren't in A Feast for Crows, and it starts following more ancillary characters, and then it took like another 6 years for A Dance of Dragons to come out, right? Like that's when the gaps started getting longer and longer. But there's a lot of good stuff, but it's also, the other thing is it's a lot of table setting for stuff that we've been waiting over a decade to see at this point. Literally, not to spoil things, but how Dance of Dragons basically ends with 2 or 3 major battles about to happen, right? There's major battles are about to happen at the end of Dance of Dragons all across Westeros, and the book just kind of stops. And I think they're very good. I like them. I don't know. I think it's just because they're the way they're split up that it can feel a little. And then A Feast for Crows is a really dour novel, right?
Yeah.
Because it's literally A Feast for Crows. It's literally a story about okay, the war is technically over, so here's all the people literally feasting on the corpses of war, right?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of structure and pacing for an ongoing saga, it's totally the right move. You can't just have another what's the third one? Sword of Storms, back to back. That's overload. You can't.
Well,
that is 3 books of payoff.
I also don't know if you noticed, but the other thing, and this is why the gap kind of became huge, the other thing was that it was going to be 4 books, and there was supposed to be a 5-year gap between A Storm of Swords and A Dance with Dragons. That was the original plan. And Martin changed his plan because he realized he would be telling most of the story in flashback, and it didn't really work. So he changed his plan, and then it's partly what led to a lot of what some people could see as meandering, but I kind of like it. I like a lot of the stuff, and it's introduced a lot of things that probably weren't present in his original plans that I think have added a lot to the story. But again, because of the books kind of not being finished, there's this such problem of those 2 books are full of potential energy, right? That hasn't been released yet, and if you have only the show to go after, it wasn't released very well, and so it's one of those where we have to wait for the next book, really, and then that one will also end with a cliffhanger, right? He's got 2 books to fucking go.
Yeah,
But,
and I mean, for this entire decade he's been waiting. He's also said like maybe it'll be more. Like he's always thrown that out there. It doesn't mean he's going to, but he has always thrown that out there.
Yeah, he's always,
that is worth noting.
He's always like, he's like, when, like, I might get to X number of pages and realize that I need to write more books. I did the calculation at one point where I was like, if he wrote 1 page a day, how long would it take for a 1,500 page novel to get finished? And I think that was like 5 years ago. Because like that's kind of that's the Stephen King thing, is that he writes like at least a page a day. I think Stephen King writes 10 pages a day. So
that's good.
That's how he has such the like wild output. And there is an interview with Martin and King together where they kind of go back and forth, and Martin's like, how the hell do you write so quickly? He's like, aren't you writing and then realize you're a fucking fraud and that you hate what you're doing and that you should have become an accountant like your father said. Like he goes on like this whole rant. It's pretty funny, but like then again, he's also like he's been so stuck in like he's in like House of the Dragon territory. Like there's so much going on with those Game of Thrones. I'm at the point where I've given up that they will ever be finished, but I do want one more book, you know. And I also, like I said with you, I want more fucking Dunk and Egg, and I know that there's a manuscript out there that's basically finished for a 4th Dunk and Egg story. And that's one where he's like, yeah, I have like 12 Dunk and Egg stories I want to write. And I'm like, dude, you've written 3. Like, dude, come on now. Like, but
I mean, like, to keep in the realm of fantasy for Reign of Fire, like, I do love the sort of meandering world building that Martin does. Like, other people maybe criticize it, but that is, like, my favorite stuff in Game of Thrones, the show, and the books. And there's, like, a lot of, I think, really interesting Reign of Fire stuff. Like, when they're talking about, like, the ecosystem of the dragons, are like, oh, yeah, like, the dragons are getting more desperate because they've basically destroyed the world, right? Like, they don't have as much to eat anymore because they've eaten all their resources already, the people and like nature and stuff. And it's like, that's not like very complicated, but it is like more thought put into this.
Yeah, well, they're in,
maybe say later episodes of Game of Thrones.
Yeah, well, they're in an environmental hazard, right? Like in a Game of Thrones equivalent, they are like in Game of Thrones, the White Walkers are more the environmental hazard, right? Like Game of Thrones, the metaphor is more like White Walkers are the environment, dragons are, power, right? Like the sort of the quest for power and control that is ultimately unobtainable and will destroy us, right? Like that we, they're like nuclear weapons you can ride around on. So like, but here they're very much an environmental threat, which is interesting considering that when you do that in contrast with McConaughey's character, where he is, he's like a military nut. He is very much a post. I mean, it's weird. This movie comes out in July 2002, so it had to have been in production before 9/11, right? But it very much has the vibe of like, England, you got to help us fucking take out Bin Laden, right? Like that is the vibe of like, England, you are now subservient to the United States. Which was kind of where things were. I mean, England's one of the only countries that supported us going into Iraq, Thanks, Tony Blair, you fucking moron. But there was that sort of like the old world power now falling under the new. And I mean, there's so many jokes about like, oh God, it's worse. It's an American. Those fucking lines.
Yeah.
Although to bring it back to the environmental comparison, this it has a very similar opening to Rodan, the kaiju film by Ishiro Honda.
Yeah.
Which is my favorite Ishiro Honda kaiju film. I think Rodan's a masterpiece. And that is another one where it's mining that unleashes them. Now, Rodan has a whole first act where it's like caterpillar monsters that are attacking people like that.
Yeah.
But they're building the London Underground, but in that it is very explicitly like a coal mine, and there's even references to global warming in Rodan, which is a movie from like fucking 1967. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, imagine if we had taken that seriously in 1967.
Wait, okay, refresh my memory of with the caterpillars in Rodan. They're like, are they related to Rodan,
Well,
or are they just like random caterpillar monsters type like
the
harvesting or feasting?
The twist is, if I remember, is that like they dig and they unleash they unleash the caterpillars, but also like they don't realize it, but they've also unleashed Rodan's egg, right? That like that's a whole other
Okay.
thing. And like a guy gets like brain damage and like he keeps reacting negatively to birds and we don't know why. And what it turns out is those caterpillars, they come out and they kill some miners and they like attack a village and stuff like that. And people are like, where are these things coming from? It turns out they're like Rodan's food source. So when Rodan hatches, it eats the caterpillars. So like,
Okay.
yeah. So like it's kind of a twist where it's
Okay.
like you think they're the monsters, but then it turns out like, oh no, they're just food for the bigger monster.
Okay, well, this is sort of relevant because in the game, I don't think it works one-to-one comparison, but in the game of Reign of Fire, they have like these Velociraptor type scavengers that go into the castle. You have to stop them from getting into the castle to eat and grab the people for the dragons.
All right.
You know, so they got a little like, you know, they're not in the movie. I was very disappointed with that, but like that is just something that's a little similar. So maybe there's a big Rodan fan in the production of this movie and video game.
I get the vibe that there is, but also like there is the part in this where it's like the dragons have turned to cannibalism essentially because there's so little food, right? Like they're starting to eat each other, you know?
Yeah,
that's
no.
a
And
whole
there's also the element of there's only one male and the rest of the species is female, or at least like in this community, right? Like in this area of dragons.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like it's this weird like food chain that's eventually will just like suffocate and die,
Yeah.
which is like interesting to think about.
It's a
I guess
weird-
they had plans for a sequel. I don't know how you do the sequel after that, but whatever.
Right, you know what the sequel might be? It might be fucking another kaiju inspiration. It might be some Monster Zero type shit of like Ghidorah was like an invasive species, you know? Like
Oh yeah,
from
yeah.
another planet. Like so it's like maybe the dragons are an invasive species to the planet Earth. Maybe they're aliens, right? There is some
Yeah, I
line.
would've been cool with
There is
that.
some line in this about how they like it, they made the dinosaurs go extinct, which is a funny line. So maybe they came on that asteroid that hit, and so it wasn't just the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs; it was the dragons that came with it. So,
I mean,
here's-
hey, why not?
this is something I also mentioned is that like there should be 20 direct-to-DVD sequels to this. Like, that
Oh
just
no,
build-
without a doubt.
That just build on this ridiculous lore. I mean, it's owned by Touchstone, so that's probably never happening. But you know,
No, I say this with full sincerity. If I ever get into a room with any Disney executive, because that's the people that own this movie now, which is not a joke, I pitch them a Reign of Fire reboot, remake, whatever. I would kill to do something with Reign of Fire. I don't even know what. I just like, you guys should do that again. Don't even hire me. Just get someone to do that. Give it $200 million. Give it more than 3 years of production time, because that's a lot of special effects. Make your money back on the next Avengers or whatever the fuck, and take a shot on dragons fighting helicopters and stuff.
here's something though: has this movie ever been released on Blu-ray?
I don't think so.
Checking.
Let's see.
I'm on the Blu-ray.com.
Yes.
Okay. Looks like a shit Blu-ray though.
Yeah. It looks like one of those early ones. So
Yeah.
Who knows?
But it was one of those where I'm like, because it felt like, says the video and sound quality is good, so that's all that really matters. But
Yeah. It is the Blu-ray that is available on Amazon. It is only region B2. Will not play in most Blu-ray players in North America, Central America, any of the Americas, basically.
I'm trying the Blu-ray.
So I would invest in a universal Blu-ray player.
Yes.
Thank me later.
The Blu-ray.com doesn't say if there was ever a region one. At least not on the page I'm on. But that also makes sense that it was only a region 2 movie.
Yeah.
But it looks region 2 because like England does shitty movie covers for some reason. But
I have a note on the production side, which is like probably even more of a reason why I have like such a big soft spot for this movie.
Uh-huh.
So like, they have to rewrite the movie to make it cheaper, to make it feasible to produce, because people wanted to make this movie for whatever reason. Thank you, by the way, for making this
Well,
movie.
did you see who one of the producers was?
Oh yes. No.
Richard
Who are you gonna bring
D.
up?
Zanuck, the producer of Jaws.
There it is.
So he's done a lot of movies like this, where he's tried to get sort of like, I mean, we just talked about him on the Planet of the Apes remake that Burton did, because he ends up being Burton's guy for a little bit, but
Yeah.
he's tried to do similar things in his career. So this is clearly like, this is the guy who produced Jaws, so he wanted to do something in that pocket.
I mean, hey, Happy Amlin connection. He's the guy who gives Spielberg a shot at a theatrical release with Sugarland Express.
Yeah, exactly. Him and David Brown. So
Yeah.
how was I fucking 5 years old and I knew the name of the producers of Jaws? That's fucking. I'm such a pathetic nerd. Like,
you're fucked up. I know.
couldn't tie my fucking shoes, but I could tell you everything about the production history of Jaws. Uh-oh.
But the production of history of Reign of Fire is that like they spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to make the dragons, like distinct, and then eventually they're like, we need to like just get this movie made, so let's kind of start rushing through this. At one point, they reached out to one of our boys, H.R. motherfucking Geiger,
Yeah.
to do a dragon for Reign of Fire, and it's interesting, but it's like, yeah, that you can't
You can't film
in
that.
2002, you can't film this.
Why they
You
gotta
could maybe
look,
film it now.
Look, we love H.R. Geiger, but there is such a dumb Hollywood thing of being like, the alien worked once. Let's get that guy.
Yeah.
Like, what else?
Uh-huh.
What other designs of H.R. Geiger were actually ever used?
Species.
Like Species, but Species sucks. So
Yeah, that wasn't in the pro column.
yeah, but that's also like that is such a sign of hack bullshit of that movie, right? Like, I'm just like, and then it's also like they kept trying to bring him back for Alien sequels, and then being like, we can't use this. Like,
Yeah. No, my favorite is the Alien 3 one, where he's like, I want to make the alien sexy. I wanted to kiss with the lips and pull out the victim's tongue, and everyone's like, oh, all right, I'm just gonna.
oh yeah, there's
just
a
walk
there's a
slowly,
reason.
walk away slowly.
There's a reason
slowly.
why we don't talk to you.
Yeah.
But
All right. Hey, get the car started. Get the car started. Start the fucking car. Get it out of here.
go. But yeah, like there's a couple of there's a film. There's so many of these movies I've just never seen that he's credited on, that I might have to seek out now. He's in Poltergeist. He did the Poltergeist 2 Creatures.
I've never seen Poltergeist 2 and 3.
2's all right.
All right.
But they're not like amazing movies.
Yeah. I mean,
both
You're not topping the first Poltergeist.
2 and 3 both have the thing of like there's an actor in 2 that was like dying while they were making it, like, and you can tell like he's the villain of the movie.
That's
He's like
sad.
he's like in his 80s and had cancer, and he gives like this kind of insane but he gives like this like insanely committed performance as a result. Yeah, Julian Beck, he was 60 and had cancer, and it's Poltergeist 2 is his last movie, and he's really good. And the Poltergeist 3 has the thing where poor Heather O'Rourke passed away during the filming of it, right? The little girl. So like and if you watch Poltergeist 3, you can tell what scenes in it were filmed after her passing. Like there's really bad uses of body doubles in Poltergeist 3. But and then a bunch of people said those movies are cursed as a result. And it's like, no, sometimes fucking bad shit just happens. Fucking shut the fuck up. But Zelda Rubinstein's in all three of them.
You really got me on the wavelength of like, we got to stop talking about supernatural curses and shit with certain things in life, because it's like at some point you're just ignoring very real tangible things that we can fix in the real world,
Yeah.
that sort of mentality lets people like the Warrens rise to popularity.
Yeah.
And like, look, I like James Wan movies. That is gross.
Yeah.
That they have that extra platform
It is
now.
one of those things where, like, if you film it and, like, you genuinely believe it, right? Like, where it's like,
Yeah.
okay, like, we disagree, but whatever, you know? But then, like, James Wan, like, has to know he's full of shit, right? Like, 'cause stuff happens in
Yeah.
those movies that if they happened, like, no one would be disputing the existence of ghosts, right? Like, if stuff that, like, he describes really happened. So James Wan, like, knows he's lying. Like, that's what really bugs me. It's a thing of, like, even, like, I mean, I'm annoyed with Oliver Stone, obviously, for JFK, but at least he does actually believe a lot of the shit he's saying, you know? Like, and for Oliver Stone, he was like, any lie I'm telling is in service of a greater truth, and in his mind is similar to taking historic liberties with, you know, a history movie. Whereas James Wan is like, has to know he's full of shit, which that just bugs me. And but that's a whole other discussion. I was watching
That
a
is a whole other
video
discussion.
about, and get like how bad it's gotten in terms of misinformation, is that Discovery Channel did a fake documentary about megalodons, being like, the megalodon is back, right? It was kind of like a found footage type thing. Yeah, Megalodon, the monster shark lives. It was like a Halloween or Shark Week special. And it's a narrative, like, it's not real, but clips of it have been taken out of context and spread around the internet and been like, look, these scientists actually found proof of the megalodon existing. And, you know, it's like we've gotten really bad in terms of how misinformation is spread out there, because misinformation makes more money than accurate information. Thanks,
Yeah.
Mark.
No, it's
Thanks.
really bad on places like TikTok too.
Yeah.
I don't know if you caught wind of, this is related to monster stuff and fantasy stuff too. If you caught wind of the fucking conspiracy theory about like giant secretly like coming back to Earth to overtake us. Like, that's what I don't even know. It's so stupid.
The only good
it's
thing,
so stupid.
The only good thing about TikTok conspiracies is that they work similarly to TikTok trends, where they're big for like a minute and then immediately die, right? Like,
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
they don't hang around in the way they do on YouTube, which is kind of interesting when you think about it.
That is. And you know what one of my favorite conspiracy theories is, which is completely harmless because I don't actually believe it's true. I just like thinking about it. And I've talked about it before. It's that dinosaurs coexisted with people like up to medieval times. Like, I do not believe this is real, but I'm like no one's made a movie about this where like dinosaurs were just existing alongside people, and that's how you get different cultural interpretations of dragons, right? Like, I think that's kind of fun.
Well,
obviously not real. I do not believe it. I need to clarify that, just to make sure people don't think I'm crazy.
You know the origin of that conspiracy, right?
I don't know. Is it like some anti-Semitic bullshit?
Well, they're all anti-Semitic if you go deep
yeah,
enough.
that's where I know it's gonna go back there.
But it's creationism. It's a byproduct of creationism, being like, because young Earth creationists are the ones that believe the Earth is 6,000 years old, right? And they're like, if that's the case, then how did all the dinosaur bones get around, right? And for them, in creationism, dinosaurs existed pre-Noah's flood, right? And then that was the apocalyptic event that wiped out the dinosaurs. And that's why they're buried so deep in the earth. Like, they believe that the sediment levels, even though carbon dating and the sediment levels prove the age of the earth, basically, they believe all of that was done in Noah's flood. And then any dinosaurs after that were ones that survived, right? That survived the flood in some capacity. So it's a creationist conspiracy theory. But also, so are giants. Like, a lot of that's because there's giants described in the Bible, you know? Like, there's a lot of the really dumb evangelical Christian stuff is taking the poetic language of the Bible, which even people in the ancient world would have understood as poetic language, and taking it literally, you know? Like, there's like lines about like, and then God shook the pillars of the earth, which is a poetic way of saying God caused an earthquake, right? And people in the ancient world would have understood that as a metaphor. And nowadays people go, no, that means there must be literal pillars of the earth. Like,
No, you know what? I'm gonna credit two people from my religious upbringing because this is like I'm looking back right now, and I think this is where my crossroads with faith begins. Okay. One of them is my sixth grade teacher, Mr. Hibbard, who was a very good person, a very good teacher, very understanding, but very faith-based and did not really like to be questioned about that. That's when you'd brush up against, like, you know, what is acceptable to question and when you're out of line, even though, like, looking back at it, I'm like, nah, probably just a little bit of a zealot. Because he was always like, oh, yeah, you know, people able to live 400 years back then because, like, the earth or whatever, and, like, everything was so much better and healthier. And then there was a substitute teacher, I can't remember her name, like, Mrs. Boxer. She was a part-time sub, but full-time teacher whenever she wasn't, like, in charge of a certain, like, academic course, right? And she would read, like, certain things from passages and be like, you guys know this is, like, not literal, right? This is like a metaphor. You guys know that, right? Like, just straight up. And she was like, okay, good. We can move on then. And because we were so young, we didn't, like, I didn't really question immediately, but I was like, oh, that kind of sticking with
well,
me.
how?
Oh, yeah,
what
it is a metaphor.
What year do you think that was? Like, if you had to guess.
She was 5th grade. Mr. Hibbard was 6th grade. And let's see, I was an altar boy then. No, I was tapping out of being an altar boy, I think. Yeah, I was an altar boy for a little bit, and then, yeah, around that point, that's when I start kind of brushing up against, like,
Yeah.
I disagree.
Well,
because that's when I would get teachers start to tell me, like, oh, you'd make a good lawyer. Whenever they were wrong about something, and they couldn't say it because I was a student, which I'm very proud of to this day.
But I was going to say,
so-
I'm just trying to guess the era, because that was probably around the time, like, the creationism debate was back in the zeitgeist, because they were trying to push intelligent design into the schools, which is just creationism by another name.
That also might be around the time of the release of Reign of Fire.
But I'm just saying that, like, I could see, even because, like, a lot of religious people don't agree with creationism, you know, like that's a very radical fundamentalist belief, you know. The majority of Christians in the world believe that evolution is real and that God, you know, had a hand in it, right? Like, which makes a lot more sense, frankly. Like, you know, but I think that there was a pushback from even the religious, because that was there's when Bush, that was like Bush being like, how far can I take this shit, right? Like, and like the last two things Bush tried that, like, didn't work at all were trying to push intelligent design, and then what was the other one? I just said trying to get a constitutional amendment that would have banned gay marriage. Like, those are the last two things he was like, let's see how much you guys will let me do. And that was the moment America was like, you know what, we're going to draw the line there. Like, we let you get away with basically everything else, but we're going to stop you from doing those two things.
But well, I remember he was No Child Left Behind, right?
Yeah, but that was, like, earlier, right? Like, that was like post 9/11, and also, you know why it's called No Child Left Behind, right?
It's because no child was allowed to move on without everyone moving on, or something like that?
No,
it was stupid.
No. It's classic dog whistle shit. Because in the fundamentalist Christian circles, there is a very popular book series called Left Behind, which is about the people that get left behind after the rapture, and that is a very popular belief.
Yes, it's all coming together now. And oh my god.
That was George Bush's way of being like, yes, this is education reform, but what this really is the first step of getting our foot in the door for education and eventually putting Christ back in schools.
Someone needs to throw another fucking shoe at that man's fucking mouth. Oh my god.
That was, now, whether or not he really intended to do that is another thing. Like, it's one of those things where, like, they just knew how to play, like, they knew how to really play to their base, right? But in post 9/11, it was very much a, like, if we convince these Christians we're doing it to help fight this holy war against Islam, then we can get away with anything, right? And so, like, that's why it's called the No Child Left Behind Act. It's a dog whistle to fundamentalist Christians.
I just know. Look, that makes me hate it even more. I just know because my mom was a teacher, and her coworkers were like just fucking livid because it made the fucking regimen so much harder to teach kids.
Yeah, no,
it helped no one.
Yeah, No Child Left Behind has basically helped no one except the government get more involved in what they teach our kids. Like, that's really what it comes down to. And it's become about denying resources to inner city schools. And it's only gotten worse with, like, vouchers and fucking, like, charter schools and shit. Like,
yeah. Oh, and I guess, like, student lunch debt, which is a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a
if you are responsible for that, I can't say what I want to happen to you. I hope it does.
I want them dragons to come back, but specifically for you.
Yes, that's a better way of putting it.
But yeah, it's there's a lot of that of just like it's, you know, and also like Bush was pushing the No Child Left Behind thing before 9/11 even. Like that was one of the things when he got into office, that was one of his goals. Was like we're gonna do education reform, right? And I mean, what was he doing on 9/11?
Oh my god!
Remember, he was reading to kids as part of promoting his education bill.
Everything's so fucked up all the time.
That is really like the equivalent of like the real villain being in the background the whole time. Like, things are going great, Diego.
I'm so angry.
See, this is...
How am I supposed to talk about fucking dragons?
Well, no, because this is the thing. We gotta bring them back. We gotta... I'm a hyper-accelerationist now. We have to bring the dragons back to set the clocks back, to stop all this insanity. Now, this is what... I gotta say this, though. Just to have... This is why I love doing the podcast. Because
I get my blood pressure just fucking skyrockets.
Because look, I live in a bubble where I just assume everyone knows these things, and I don't realize that like, oh, I know these things like that. Like so, like I sometimes I'm talking to politics to people, and I'm like, why is everyone looking at me like I'm insane? And I realize, oh, because I haven't explained the 30 other things that happened that led to this moment. Like, I just assume... I'm like, well, we all know Bush was trying to get religion back in the schools. I mean, right? Like, we all know this. And everyone's like, he was what? Like, I was like, yeah, you know, he was pushing a fundamentalist Christian agenda. Like, that was the Republicans' way of realizing they could hold on to power for generations. And people are like, are you saying it wasn't about lowering taxes? You know, I'm like, not for you. Like... So I just love the constant me throwing something out there and you being like, fucking what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to make you upset, Diego.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
I feel like we're at a breaking point though, which I like. I say that as a good thing. Like, I feel like...
I do too.
I feel like people are like, they kind of realize like, oh, these people aren't just crazy, they're trying to destroy democracy. Like, that this is a plan. This was their plan the whole time. Like,
no. Because, like, look, here's the thing, and then I swear to God, we'll get back to Rain of Fire to wrap up, but, like, the way Biden was genuinely flailing, like, it is undeniable that he was flailing. If you watch any moment of footage from him that is unedited, that dude... Unless he's saying he wants to fight someone, that dude is not lucid. Okay? And on some level, I have to respect that.
Yeah.
I also want to just be pumped full of horse tranquilizers when I'm 80,000 years old. Fuck yeah, baby. Ride the shit till the wheels fall off.
Did no one have cocaine? Like,
I know, right?
You put the horse tranquilizer in, and
then
no one
else
give him a little cocaine like right before going out on stage. He would have done well, but...
Did no one else watch Robert Zemeckis' Flight?
Yeah, exactly. Gotta find that right balance, man.
Biden's at the podium. He's like, I'm drunk now. No, but like,
John Goodman comes rolling in like middle of the day.
No, okay, but now that he's out of the race, and Kamala, you know, has her own problems, but she can hold a crowd for the most part.
She can speak coherently for 20 seconds.
Yes. We'll get her in the White House, and then we get to work on that. But now the other guys are completely flailing. Because Donald Trump also not really ever been lucid, frankly.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance, not even a person, technically.
Yeah.
Probably like a marionette doll that was brought to life by some cursed child, at the very least.
Like, and one
Like-
of those, like, southern, like, those, like, you know, like, when you're, like, go through your grandparents', like, stuff, and you find a doll, and you're like, this shit's, like, a racist caricature of a Jew or something. Like, it's, like, something awful.
Yeah,
Like,
he's that.
He's part of that. Like...
Where it's like, I don't know if we should show this to anyone.
Yeah.
But he's out there, and he's the Republican VP candidate.
Yeah.
Insane. But they cannot even play to their base anymore.
Yeah.
And that's fucking awesome.
Well, did you like
good stuff coming
here's
up.
something I think, because it was still in the middle of, like, it was him getting shot at, and then Biden, like, we still didn't know what Biden was doing when they did the RNC, right? And I kind of thought it was wild how unremarked upon that literally Trump just brought a bunch of con men, like famous con men, on stage, like Hulk Hogan, like. Everyone knows Hulk Hogan's fucked up, right? Like,
Yeah.
even if you're a Republican, you know Hulk Hogan's fucked up. And then, like, he goes on national TV while he's being investigated for steroids and lies, sues Gawker, like, does all sorts of insane shit like that, right? Like, covers for his kids. It's like his whole life, like, disintegrated multiple times. Every wrestler hates him, you know? And, like, and then
Yeah.
you bring him out at the RNC. It's like, it's not even, like, Clint Eastwood coming out for fucking 2012, even though he talked to the chair, made more sense, right? Like, it was...
Yeah, it's like, in hindsight, that was kind of endearing.
Yeah. No, I always say that is... Him talking to the chair is one of the best pieces of performance art of the 2010s. Like, Clint Eastwood just talking to a chair was amazing. And a moment that, like, I wish happened more often. Because if I told you, like, the backstory to that...
You probably have, but tell me again.
All right, well,
My brain's rotten.
The short version of it is he had done a Super Bowl commercial that was like for I think for some car company, I don't remember. But he was like, it was very
Oh my yes.
It's like it's halftime in America, right? And it was very much a like we're like Obama's not doing a good job. He's leaving real Americans behind. It was like the subtext of that ad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so the fucking Romney campaign was like, let's piggyback off of that because it kind of went viral, and we're like, let's get him here, and he'll do a speech where he's like, it was halftime, now this is the 2-minute warning or something like that. They want him to say it, and he's like, I'm not gonna say that, and they're like, well, what do you want? He's like, I'll come up with something. Like, don't worry. And everyone was like, okay, it's Clint Eastwood, like he knows what he's doing, so no one vetted him. No one checked what he was going to say before he went out on stage. No one had any idea. And allegedly, he came up with it like an hour before going on stage. He saw an empty chair and was like, this would be fun. And just did it. So the Romney campaign was as shocked as everyone else when he did it. And allegedly was like texting him being like, get him off the stage. He's insane. And they're like, you can't pull Clint Eastwood off the stage. Like, imagine the optics of them yanking him off stage. Like, amazing, right?
Well, that was kind of like an insight into where this country was headed, and also, you know, a little humble in hindsight.
Yeah.
Considering how insane things have gotten.
No, it's like it's one of those things where I'm like, that was a great moment in history. Like, I can look back and be like, yeah, I miss when politics was insane like that. Like, as opposed to now we're like, Trump's like getting on stage being like, she ain't even black, or whatever the fuck he said at the fucking black journalist event recently. Like,
I know. It's like, oh my god.
It was
it's beautiful. Honestly, maybe I don't want to be too optimistic yet, but watching them flounder without watching our guys flounder,
yeah,
it's kind of nice.
Yeah, it is. It was good, and it's also just one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, he's only talked to people that were already in his pocket for like the last 10 years, like, right? Like, it's like he hasn't been challenged by anyone. He could go on Colbert, and Colbert could even softball him a little, and like, not even Colbert, he could go on Fallon now, and Fallon could probably end his political career. It'd be a good way for Fallon to redeem himself, frankly. But
Yeah.
could you imagine if it ended like that? If Fallon was like, "Come on back," and like Trump just thought, "Oh, it's gonna be like when he touched my hair," and then Fallon asks him some legit questions, and it all falls apart.
You know what's fucked up? For the last, like, I'll say 8 years at this point, I've not believed, like, politics could be won in, like, some Aaron Sorkin style, like,
Narrative
discussion
arc.
showdown. Yeah, no narrative arc. That's sort of where things are headed.
Yeah. Well, no,
So, like, what the fuck do I know?
No, it is one of those where, like, ask Trump a real question and he can't answer it. Like, it's it's a weird thing where, because right now the media, they don't know what to do with him, because I think a lot of the media regrets how he was covered in 2016, you know? So it's been a lot of,
Yeah.
like, hands-off type stuff, but it is one where it's like, because of that, he's been in his own pocket, hyping up just his own base, and so it seems like he's a lot more popular than he really is, but it's like the moment he tries to reach outside of it, it's disastrous. Like, and JD Vance is the first sign of that, because JD Vance has to be, because Trump can kind of hide, JD Vance can't, right? So Vance is just floundering out there, and it's been an interesting. Now, by the time this episode airs, something more insane could have happened. Like,
If something more insane happens, I'm going to add a tidbit at the start of the episode. Don't worry.
Yeah.
'Cause, like, I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
But speaking of things that are normal and totally chill.
Dragons.
Dragons. This movie, I didn't even mention the director, Rob Bowman.
Yep.
Do you know who Rob Bowman is?
Yeah, well, he was like a TV guy, and he did, what was the movie he does, like, right after this? That was like a bomb.
It's actually relevant to pop culture right now. It was
Elektra,
Jennifer
yeah.
Garner's Elektra.
Yeah. And he did the X-Files movie.
Yes, which is a good movie.
You know what? I haven't seen it in forever. X-Files is one where
Okay,
I'm like,
no.
I want to revisit X-Files, but I'm also like, we need to get out, like, QAnon needs to collapse before I can watch X-Files again, right? Like, this conspiracy shit just isn't fun right now. So,
No, totally get it. Yeah, he's a TV guy. He still directs TV once in a while. But yeah, his X-Files movies I think is very good. He did the pilot for the spin-off Lone Gunman. He even did episodes of Castle.
is Lone
recently.
Gunman
Like,
the pilot that accidentally predicted 9/11?
I think so.
Yeah, it was like there's a hijacked plane that's gonna fly into a building. Like,
Yeah.
But he also did an episode of
Whoops.
The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., which we just talked about.
Yeah, which I have to watch.
Yeah, good stuff. We had a lot of great. I was just at my thrift store, and they had all 5 seasons of Babylon 5 on DVD for like $40. So
Wow.
I just bought all 5 seasons. When I went to get, because I realized I didn't own Reign of Fire, and I was kind of like, I could have Reign of Fire, $4 for a DVD. I could afford to have that. And I went out and bought it, and I saw they had Babylon 5. So, so now I got Babylon 5.
Yeah, there's a section on Rob Bowman's Wikipedia page dedicated to style, and that he likes lighting contrasts. He loves framing actors with silhouettes or as silhouettes, and I think maybe that's why I like this movie too, because it's very contrasty, even though it's not very like colorful.
It's also
a post-apocalyptic movie.
It's also a good way to kind of hide the dragons at times, you know.
Yeah.
Because the effects are very early 2000s. Not awful, but also like they definitely have aged a little bit. But they've also aged in that way that's kind of more charming than like annoying, right? Like
Yeah. Like it's not Dungeons and Dragons, the movie.
yeah, it is
The
not.
first
It
one,
is not the first Dungeons and Dragons movie, which should never have been allowed anywhere near a movie theater. Can I ask,
But yeah, I mean, just some advice for like VFX stuff too. Like the more contrasty and less realistic it looks, or like, I guess more realistic because shadows exist in the real world. Like your VFX will look better. Whoever says like, oh, they have low contrast, low saturation to work with the VFX more, that's not true. I don't know who started that rumor. No VFX person has ever said that. So don't listen to that. Okay, that's just not true.
yeah, who knows what's
I just feel like that should be said.
It is one of those weird things where it's like, do any of these people even talk to the VFX people? But,
I know. Todd Vaziri, that popular VFX artist on Twitter, who's worked on like all the Star Wars movies for like the last 20 years and all this Star Treks and shit like that. He's a very big proponent of like it's just like objectively not true. We need people to shoot good plates. We need contrast. We need color.
But that sounds
you need
that
lighting.
sounds like a lot of work.
It does.
Like, let's just let the VFX guys do it. I mean, they're just sitting at a computer. How hard can that be?
Boo. The film was also shot by director of photography Adrian Biddle, who has since passed away back in December of 2005. I did not realize that. Rest in peace. His first job as cinematographer was on none other than James Cameron's Aliens. So,
Hey.
yeah, kind of a big deal.
Yeah, so that's a pretty... although, was he one of the people that James Cameron like tried to murder halfway through production?
Probably, yeah. But he got his start as a clapper loader on The Duelist, and then was the focus puller on Alien.
Oh, he also did
So
he did Event Horizon, which is another sign.
Your
of that
favorite movie?
Yeah, another sign that movie's a fucking hack job.
Whoa.
Fuck that movie.
Also for other millennial heads, he shot Stephen Sommers' first and second Mummy films.
Yeah, right on. Also, this movie's V for Vendetta. Yeah. That's not bad.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. I didn't know this. He shot Shanghai Nights, which is a problematic fave for me.
You know what? I've never seen it.
Well, British people are the bad guys, so you might like it.
I'm actually... Jackie Chan, American work is kind of a big blind spot for me.
Well, most of them aren't good, but
yeah,
I think Shanghai Nights is fun.
Okay, I might have to check it out then. Is that the first one? Because there's Shanghai Nights and then something else, right?
No, it's Shanghai Noon is the first one.
Okay, is Shanghai
and then Shanghai
Noon.
Nights is the second one.
Is Shanghai Noon good?
I remember liking it, but I never liked it as much as Nights.
Okay.
Yeah,
I guess
because Nights you also have Donnie Yen as
right.
a secondary antagonist, so him and Jackie get to throw down. And
God,
it's
we wasted so many of those martial arts guys in the early 2000s.
I know, I know.
It's we just how the fuck. You would think in the wake of Crouching Tiger we would have been let's do that more, and it was no.
Yeah.
Let's put them in the worst movies ever.
I know. It's fucked up.
But
Donnie Yen's big comeback for movies in America was Rogue One.
Yeah.
And say what you will about that movie, I still like it. He does steal the movie, and even then, it's it's not till John Wick 4 when he gets another shot.
Yeah, and it's also Rogue One is very much a let's use Donnie Yen a little differently than you would normally use Donnie Yen, right? He does some action stuff, but
and everyone liked it.
Yeah, he's good. It's he can actually act. It's it's one of those okay, yeah, we could put him in more movies. He has range, and it's no. But fucking movies.
Yeah. How much more you got on Rain of Fire? I just want to run down some more cast just to say.
Yeah, well, we can talk about the cast. There's Christian Bale's in this. Where's Christian Bale in relation to everything here? This is pre-Batman, obviously.
It's pre-Batman, but it's post-American Psycho.
Okay. So.
Which I rewatched a couple months back at one of those rooftop cinema things. Great fucking movie.
Yeah. Holds up surprisingly well.
Yeah, even though it's about a culture that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah. But
it's
I think
become more disturbing.
I think the attitude of it exists though, which is interesting.
Yeah.
I'm looking at his.
Yeah. Oh, he does Equilibrium right after
yeah,
this.
Well, that's what's weird. Is him and McConaughey are both in this weird pocket where they are trying to become movie stars, right? And it ends up working more for Bale, and for a little bit. Gerard Butler. Gerard Butler gets 300 a few years later, and then he becomes a movie star very briefly. Now he's
my boy Jerry B.
Yeah, now he's kind of
Beef.
He's kind of a schlock movie star. We all love him, but he's not where he was in the 300 era. But yeah,
no. But now he's churning out bangers like Den of Thieves.
Yeah. But yeah, it's he does Equilibrium. He's Howl in Howl's Moving Castle. And was apparently one of the few people that Miyazaki must have liked doing the English voice because they brought him back for Boy and the Heron.
Yeah, that's strange.
Well, who knows? That's the Howl's Moving Castle is actually probably one of the better English dubs Disney did. Now that I think about it, even fucking what's his name? Billy Crystal is good in it. And it's Billy Crystal's gonna voice a fucking demon? What are you doing? And he's actually kind of great. But There's a fun movie about the Iraq War.
But yeah, yeah, I love Christian Bale. I don't know how often I talk about this. He's
No.
one of my favorite working actors. Like, I don't think anyone's gonna disagree with me.
No, Christian
but I
Bale-
do feel like he's a guy that we kind of take for granted almost. Like, yeah, he's great. Yeah, and we move on.
But he's one of those guys where he can be a movie star and also do like great work, you know? Like he doesn't feel siloed in the way other people do, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
And I do think it's funny that like he had to like stop changing his body because his doctors were like, "This is gonna kill you. Like you can't at your age you can't be doing this the way you did." Because like I'm sure everyone's seen the comparison pictures between his work in The Machinist and then Batman Begins. Where in The Machinist he's like 100 pounds, and in Batman Begins he's like 250, and that's muscle.
Yeah.
You know, like that your heart will give out if you do that to yourself too
don't
much.
do that. Don't do that, kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of the meta joke of The Dark Knight Rises, where it's like, and that's why I say you can't go hella skiing or whatever the fuck. Remember when he's like goes to the doctor to get checked out? So, but no,
But Batman has no limits.
yeah, he's gonna be in the Frankenstein's Bride movie that's coming out.
Oh, from Maggie Gyllenhaal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. I've not seen anything she's directed.
Neither have I.
I hope it's good.
Yeah.
Because
I want a good Frank.
if a woman directs a film poorly, then
Yeah.
it's a crime against all women apparently in this fucking industry.
It's a sign that like we let the least talent. I mean, whatever. I don't want to go on that rant, but people get weird about it.
No.
I mean,
it's all fucked up.
There's that thing of like there's people who get a little too excited to criticize a female director as opposed to a male director, right? Like people like you're having a little too much fun here, buddy.
Yeah.
And it's like you might be right, but you know, let's think about this for a minute.
Yeah. No one to put your foot on the brakes.
Yeah. I also want to talk about the female lead of the movie.
Yes.
Whose name I'm
Isabella Scorupco.
Thank you for taking that bullet.
You're welcome. I kind of trailed off there because I wasn't sure.
Isabella. She was in Goldeneye, but I most remember her in this time for being in Vertical Limit, which is Sorcerer on a Mountain, which we talked about.
Which I still have not seen.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine.
All right. Well.
And like this is kind of like she does this, and then she does Exorcist at the beginning, and then it's kind of done, unfortunately. But you know, but it's just interesting that it's interesting what actors are like for a few years. If you watch schlock like I do, you're like, oh, they must be huge, and then it's like those are the only movies they did.
No. Oh, we have to shout out the great Alexander Siddig.
Oh yeah,
from
yeah.
Skylines fame.
Mm-hmm.
He's very good in that movie.
Yes.
And I actually was introduced to him first through. Oh, we talked about Kingdom of Heaven.
Yep.
But he was also in one of the worst seasons of 24. But he's great in it. Like when he was in the show, I locked the fuck in. I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Like he's so good, and he just gets like hack material.
he
He plays
was-
like a terrorist who feels bad
was
about being a terrorist. so he's trying to help
completely
Americans.
wasted as Doran Martell on Game of Thrones.
Yeah, what fucking great casting
know,
too. What
I
a
know.
fucking waste.
Should have been a slam dunk. But also, I mean, we're crossing. He's Dr. Julian Bashir on Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
The first gay guy on Star Trek, essentially, even though they wouldn't let it happen.
Aw.
They finally did a, I think for a charity event, they did a kind of audio play, like over Zoom, where they finally just had him be gay. So,
Yay.
in Tarek, so it was like a final, like, you know, we finally got to it. Because that's one of those where, like, you watch those first few seasons of Deep Space Nine, and it's like, these two are so fucking gay. And then some producer, Rick Berman, got worried, and suddenly they're around women a lot more in the latter half of the show. Like,
Aw.
I mean, hey, that's what happens, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
he is terrific.
Yeah,
and also we have to shout out another Star Trek legend, Alice Krieg.
hey,
Yeah, she's in the opening scene of the movie, and then she's not.
Yeah, she's kind of barely in it, but she does good.
Yeah, she's great.
She's good in it.
She's the Borg Queen in Star Trek,
Yes.
for those that don't know.
And they brought her back recently for Picard, I think.
Oh, did they? I don't know what the fuck happened with that show.
Yeah.
But I guess the last season's supposed to be good.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit that one out.
I don't know.
But yeah. I also like, speaking of just like the political stuff in this movie, this has that weird anxiety that War of the Worlds also had, which was that the youth might be this warmongering generation, right? That because there's the kid, he's like he's grooming the one kid to be a leader, but the kid's like, no, I want to go fight the dragons, and it's like, yeah, but you're gonna die. Like do you realize how fast these people die doing this? He's like, oh, if I'm good, I'll be fine. And there's the same anxiety in War of the Worlds about his son being the one wanting to go to war. And what's interesting is that like that didn't happen in real life, right? Like we didn't end up with a super like strong warmongering generation, you know? And I feel like we have the same anxiety about Gen Z right now. They're going to be more conservative, even though so far the evidence points to the exact opposite, right? So I just think I guess that's just an anxiety. It's weird where maybe we're somewhat in denial that it's like wars are really orchestrated by old men, you know, like that young people are just cannon fodder, right? But it's an interesting anxiety that existed at the time. That I don't know. Maybe am I wrong? Do you think that like did there end up being a sort of warmongering faction of the millennial generation?
You know what? Because it could always just be our bubbles, right?
Yeah.
It could always just be our bubbles. I don't think it's as severe as maybe the previous generation hoped it would be, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I say hoped because the previous two generations, you know, are responsible for some not great stuff.
Yeah.
We're responsible for some not great stuff. We're going to be responsible for some not great stuff as well.
It's just what happens. Every generation's fucked up. Like
every generation gets fucked up. I don't see a lot of people clamoring to go to war
anymore
for other countries. Because, I mean, remember, like, fucking, sorry to get even more dour, but, like, look at, like the atrocities against Palestine, the war crimes against Palestine and Palestinian people. When that began, that first month, Biden was out there fucking on the podium, slamming his gavel. Like,
yeah.
It was as bad as 15 9/11s, and people didn't, like that.
Yeah.
They weren't like, oh, we got to stop more 9/11. It was like, we see what's happening. This is fucked up.
And you can tell the establishment was so caught off guard because normally you can get up there and be like that, and it's like an easy win, right? Like being a warmonger used to be an easy win.
Yeah, and that whole thing about like if you're like a wartime president, you're going to get reelected.
Yeah, and
you know, and I'm sure that was kind of the angle they were gunning for. But between that and Ukraine, it's like people just don't want more war, regardless of the causes. People don't want to be involved in that, and so maybe that's. I mean, I think that's a good thing.
I think the pivot ended up being for millennials in terms of the conservatives. I think we just got a little more xenophobic, right? And we just repackaged xenophobia as rational, right? Like we got that like rational xenophobia that kind of came with like the wave of new atheism and shit like that. But I think war ended up not being the thing we got amped up about. So there's also remember Generation Kill?
That
miniseries. It was like kind of like about the invasion of Iraq, and again, that's very much coming out being like Generation Kill. This is going to be the generation of war. Now we arguably are because we've been in a forever war since the beginning of the 2000s, right? Like we've been a wartime nation since then, but none of us seem happy about it. Like none of us are like, we're not. It's just it's found a way into all of our lives, and we hate it. Clearly, these guys didn't play Civilization. You know, war weariness adds up and makes your citizens unhappy.
Oh my god!
You know, that's why you gotta build like stadiums and shit to make them happy, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, that's why the Olympics are coming to LA.
No, you're 100% right. Like, but also, no one seems happy about the Olympics either. Like, America still seems to be like, we know the NFL is objectively evil, yet we all still watch. Like, we still have that. But
I mean, hey, that Olympics thing, not a joke. I don't know a single fucking person in my life who's excited about the Olympics coming to LA. Everyone's like, the traffic is gonna be fucking miserable.
yeah, no one,
It's gonna take 3 hours to get to and from work, both ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
yeah, no one wants it, and it's like, now you want
Yeah.
it. Now you want it. Like, so, I mean, it's similar. Maybe, unfortunately, maybe we all sense when that they're gonna try and bring. Oh God, what was the villain of fucking Dungeons and Dragons called? The second one. They brought the games back to do a fucking blood sacrifice.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't remember the games.
Yeah.
The villain.
Yeah,
The Red Witch.
Yeah, the red mage. She was a red mage.
Oh, okay. The Red Mages, right?
Yeah.
They were red. They were bad.
They're gonna bring.
I
Like
like
some,
them. They're not the highlight of the movie.
They're gonna bring some fucking necro being back. So that's what's gonna happen. Look forward to that, LA.
Too bad we can't bring dragons back, which were definitely a real thing.
Would it be cool if dragons were real? Like, I love dragons, but also,
No.
like, it feels like it would be a problem.
That would be. No. When you're a kid, you're like, man, I wish all this fantasy stuff was real, right? Like, maybe just me or whatever. But you're a kid, you're not thinking about, like, the environmental impacts of this or
Yeah.
economic impacts of this. And here, in the real world, as we've gotten older, you kind of have to.
Yeah,
No, it would be bad.
the real-
Just imagine you're just, like, you're flying in a plane. It's like, oh, a dragon mistakes you for another attacking dragon. Boom.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we lost another plane today.
That might actually be
Not
good
because of
then we
Boeing
would've-
malfeasance.
we would have been forced to invest in rail instead of air travel. So it might have been a good thing if dragons kept us out of the sky.
I mean, maybe.
Think of how many less bombs we would have dropped, Diego. See, it's arrogant to think you know what the total impact would be of dragons.
Oh my god. Okay.
It is
Yeah,
time-
sure. Okay.
it is
I don't
time for
understand
me
the fucking.
to rise and bring back the dragons. Return the sky to the dragons. There's a villain plot. Like,
Yeah, that was the most villainous thing I think you've ever said in your life.
that'd be fun.
I don't think it would be.
I'm the king of the dragons. The sky belongs to them now. You can't stop me, Fantastic Four.
Oh my god. Yeah, you could be Doctor Doom.
Wonder Woman, you fool. But, I don't know, it just seems like that's like a fun villain plot to just bring the dragon. But the thing I was thinking of, like, you know how, like, sharks used to be fucking gigantic in dinosaur times, and now they're like, there's all sorts of different sized sharks. And it's like, some of them were kind of like really tiny and cute. And it's like, the problem with the dragon is, like, even if you had like a tiny dragon that didn't get bigger than a cat, it's still like a fire hazard. Like, it's not, you can't like have it around. It would just be causing fires all the time.
You know what? This is another problem I have with that shitty movie Bright.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have like dragons flying over stuff, right? It's like they treat them like planes. And I'm like, that raises so many questions.
Yeah.
What, like,
Dude, here's something
did you tame dragons?
I
Or
don't-
why is the movie not about that?
that would only work if the dragons talk. Do the dragons talk? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Do
I
they-
don't think they
If
answer
then
that.
it doesn't make sense if they don't talk it, because like if you can talk to a dragon and be like, hey man, don't burn this down, and be like, all right, you get it, like, okay, he's a sentient being, right? So I guess that's what
Or, you know what? That'd be like,
I'm pro talking dragons coming back, like Dragonheart.
Okay.
But don't want.
well, then that'd be like a fun like economic system to put in your fantasy world. Where it's like, okay, like the dragons won't do this, but you have to give us this gold or whatever.
Well,
you
yeah,
have to do this and you have to do that. It's like, trade-based economics.
There's like there's like a spa, like you go to, like we like do mud baths, but they just get tons and tons of gold coins dumped on them.
Yeah.
Like it helps their joints. That'd be fun. Can Max Landis like disappear under mysterious circumstances that we were in no way
Oh my. Okay.
that we were in no way involved in? And can we get the rights to Bright and just do it better?
Just do a different fantasy story. I have something to tell you later, but
Okay, we'll talk.
I maybe I have an idea.
We'll talk about that. But I always said my version of Bright would be it would have been a talking unicorn would have been the partner.
Oh, I like that
So
one.
it's like a human, and like then looks like he's like annoyed because you have to hook up the trailer, like the horse trailer to the back of the cop car, and they have to communicate through like a little radio between the two vehicles. So, see, that would be fun. And the horse can like be coming in like fucking kicking doors down to like get drug dealers and shit.
Yeah, that'd
like,
be fun.
Like, can you imagine like he's like a unicorn and like he shoots magic and like he's got to have like a goofy name, like like Officer Sparkles or something like that. And like all his magic is really whimsical, but he uses it to like take down hardened criminals.
Yeah.
Like, down on the ground.
Yeah, see, that's
kicks
fun.
them. Be great.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the lesson we want to take away from Bright, from Reign of Fire, is that even though I think Reign of Fire is fucking Citizen Kane compared to Bright,
Yeah.
and I like Reign of Fire, like just they're goofy concepts. Have a little fun with it.
Yeah, have fun with your silly.
I do
premise.
I do like that Reign of Fire is the one that took itself seriously though, because now that exists, I don't need all of them to be that. Now lighten up a little bit.
Yeah. When you get to
Matt,
those
would you
DVD
recommend
sequels.
Reign of Fire?
I would. I would recommend Reign of Fire. Go watch it. It's probably in a bargain bin somewhere.
Oh yeah, this is 1,000%. You can get this for $5 somewhere.
Yeah,
Easy.
wherever you get your thrift DVDs from, there's probably actually. You know what? I went to my thrift DVD store and there's like a wall that is basically just Harry Potter, Resident Evil, the Fast and Furious movies, right? Like movies where like they way overproduced the number of DVDs, and then people also like rebought them on Blu-ray, so they don't need the DVD anymore. There was one copy of Reign of Fire.
Wow.
So like, and that was the one I got. So. Now, it wasn't organized very well. Like, it was kind of alphabetical, but not really. So there might have been other Reign of Fires around, but I only saw the one wedged around Resident Evil films. But there's also in the horror section, which I guess isn't wrong, but it's more of an action movie.
Yeah, I think so.
So it's genre. It's hard to shelve stuff by genre, ultimately.
Yeah.
But hey. Yes, everyone go check out Ring of Fire. Someone make some direct-to-DVD sequels to this thing. I'll be there for all of them. I think that could be fun. And it's got the right aesthetic that you can hide your cheapness in the right spots.
Yeah. Just do dragon silhouettes.
Yeah, also you just need like a bunker set. Like you don't really need much,
No.
and then just have dragons flying around, man.
Yeah.
If one of them talks, I will give you $500,000.
Do you have $500,000?
No, but I'll find it.
Okay.
Cut to me like robbing.
I was gonna ask for a favor.
I was cut to be like robbing an armored car. Be like, you don't understand. I have to pay the Reign of Fire people.
You're in the Den of Thieves sequel with Gerard Butler.
Yeah. Like, what are you going to spend it on? A Reign of Fire direct-to-DVD sequel where the dragon talks?
All right, that was Reign of Fire.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. I don't think we know what we're talking about next week. Oh, no, we do know what
Yeah,
we're talking about next week.
We're going on some adventures with Baron Munchausen.
Yeah, with notoriously chill director Terry Gilliam.
And a notoriously chill production.
Yeah, he's so good at those.
Yeah.
Look up Terry Gilliam allegations if you're curious for
Oh,
more.
boy.
We will not let that hamper our discussion. It is important context, and you should all be aware of it going into it, because the allegations are serious, but the movie is also worth talking about.
You know, in retrospect, he would have been the perfect guy to direct the Good Omens movie.
Oh.
Topical.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you didn't like this episode.
I'm glad I always end us on a positive note.
Like and subscribe anyways, because you might find something you do like. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We have been professionally unprofessional.
Bye.